Ladies and gentlemen, beloved child of God, I want to talk to the part of you that's tired, confused, and maybe even a little bit angry. You've asked God, why would you place me in the life of someone so selfish, so manipulative, so emotionally draining? Well, I'm about to tell you something that might just shake you, but it'll also set you free. One, it was a divine assignment in disguise. See, sometimes we think God puts us in comfortable places so we can have peace. But God isn't just trying to make you comfortable, He's trying to make you purposeful. That narcissist in your life, that wasn't a mistake. That was an assignment. Not for you to be abused or torn down, no. But for you to learn what it means to stand in the fire and not be burned. You are the light of the world, and where is light needed most? In darkness, you were placed there not to suffer, but to shift the atmosphere. You carry power, peace, and discernment. And sometimes God uses your presence to expose what's hidden. Two, their behavior reflects your growth opportunity. Here's the truth. Narcissists have a way of pushing every button, don't they? And God will sometimes allow someone to poke your wounds so you can finally realize you have them. It's not your fault they act the way they do, but it is your responsibility to heal the places they trigger. That emotional roller coaster you've been on, that wasn't punishment. That was purification. You're not weak for feeling broken. You're being rebuilt stronger than before. God is refining you, not ruining you. Three, boundaries are a form of obedience. Let me be clear, love doesn't mean tolerating abuse. Mercy doesn't mean becoming a doormat. You can forgive someone and still walk away with your head held high. Even Jesus had boundaries. He walked away from toxic people. He spoke truth even when it wasn't popular. And guess what? You're allowed to do that too. God didn't put you in their life to lose yourself. He put you there to find yourself in Him, and sometimes that means stepping away with peace and power. Four, your test will become someone else's testimony. You may feel like your story is stained by this narcissist, but God sees it differently. He sees a platform, a pulpit, a message inside of the mess. There are people waiting to hear how you got out, how you stayed strong, how you learned to trust God again. Your survival wasn't just for you, it was for them. So no, your pain isn't pointless. It's prophetic. God is going to take what the enemy meant for evil and flip it for good. Final thoughts, you were never alone. You were never forgotten. And you were never powerless. God saw every tear, every silent prayer, every moment you wanted to give up, and He says, I'm not done with you yet. You are not what they said you were. You are chosen. You are strong. And you are coming out of this with a story that will shock the world, because it wasn't the narcissist who had the final word. God did. And it's a word of victory. Would you like this in printable format or want to adapt it to poor YouTube or podcast style delivery? Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of the first keynote, Divine Assignment in Disguise, written in a heartfelt, bold, and faith-filled tone inspired by Joyce Meyer's style, flowing naturally without headings. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations that don't make sense, emotionally draining, confusing, even painful. And the first question that rises up in our hearts is often, God, why? Why did you allow this? Why did you place me in the life of someone so toxic, so self-centered, someone who seems to have no capacity for love, empathy, or accountability? And I get it, it hurts. You start to question your worth, your sanity, your decisions. You pray, you cry, you plead for God to change them. And nothing changes, or it gets worse. But I want to tell you something that might shake you at first, but it's the truth. And it will set you free. That narcissist, that person who drains the life out of every room, who gaslights you, who twists your words, who makes you feel invisible, powerless, or like you're always the one to blame, you were not placed in their life by accident. Now hear me clearly, God did not place you there to be abused. He didn't place you there to be broken, destroyed, or to live in constant confusion. No, that's not the nature of our God. But He did allow it, and not because He wanted to punish you, but because He saw something in you that maybe you didn't even see in yourself. You were placed there because you're carrying something they don't have. You were carrying light into a place full of shadow. You were carrying peace into an atmosphere of control and chaos. You were placed in that situation as a divine assignment, not to be consumed by it, but to transform it. God doesn't send warriors into empty fields. He sends them where the battle is. You may feel weak, but God sees your strength. You may feel lost, but God says, I've ordered your steps. You may feel like you're drowning, but you're actually walking on water and don't even know it yet. You're surviving what others couldn't. And that's not by accident, that's by design. We often think that assignments from God will be easy, peaceful, blessed, and beautiful. But that's not always the case. Sometimes God puts his people right in the lion's den, right in the furnace, right in the prison, not to harm them, but to show his glory through them. What if the very thing you're trying to pray away is the place God is preparing to do his greatest miracle in your life? You might be thinking, but I don't want to be strong anymore. I just want peace. And that's okay. God hears that. He sees your exhaustion. But he also wants you to know the enemy didn't win. They didn't break you. They didn't stop your purpose. They might have shaken your identity, but God's about to reveal it. And here's the truth most people miss. When God places you in someone's life, especially someone who is narcissistic, he's also placing you in a position to see your value more clearly, because nothing reveals your power like being around someone who's constantly trying to suppress it. Nothing reveals your inner peace like being surrounded by chaos, and nothing strengthens your boundaries like dealing with someone who tries to cross every one of them. You may have been placed in their life to intercede, to be a mirror, to awaken something in them, or maybe, just maybe, to awaken something in you. God didn't create you to be a background character in someone else's toxic story. He created you to be a vessel of light, truth, strength, and love. And if you've been feeling like, God, I can't do this anymore, let me tell you, he knows. He's not asking you to do it alone. He's not asking you to carry them. He's asking you to lean into him, to trust him in the mystery, to believe that this place you're in has purpose. You're not stuck. You're not forgotten. You're not weak. You are in a divine assignment, one that is about to shift. And when it does, when God lifts you out, when the storm clears and you look back, you won't just say, look what I went through. You'll say, look what God brought me through and who I became because of it. You're not just surviving a narcissist's world. You're being refined into someone who will never settle for less than the love God designed you to receive. That's not punishment, that's preparation. And it all started with the divine assignment in disguise. Of course, here's an expanded version of the second keynote, The Mirror of Growth, written in a strong, compassionate, and spiritually honest voice, similar to Joyce Meyer's style. No headings, just a seamless 700-word flow. One of the hardest things to admit is this: being around a narcissist doesn't just reveal who they are, it also reveals who you are. And let me tell you, that kind of exposure is not for the faint of heart. God will sometimes allow certain people into your life not because he wants to torment you, but because he wants to transform you. And sometimes that transformation begins with an uncomfortable truth. You can't grow without seeing what still needs to be healed. See, narcissists are mirrors, but not the kind that show you how great you look. They're the kind that reflect back your deepest wounds, your hidden insecurities, your unhealed trauma, your need for validation, your fear of being alone. And I know that's hard to hear. It's even harder to admit. But until you recognize it, you'll stay stuck in cycles, asking God to change the other person, when what he's really trying to do is awaken something in you. This is the part of the journey most people skip over. We want deliverance, but we don't want discovery. We want out, but we don't want to look within. And yet, that narcissist, the one who plays mind games, manipulates your emotions, makes you feel like nothing you do is ever enough. They are unknowingly being used by God to uncover the places in you that still need healing. And that, my friend, is a grace in disguise. Because here's the truth: you're not weak because you stayed too long. You're not broken because you believed in them. You're not foolish because you tried to love them through their damage. You're human. You're compassionate. You're hopeful. And none of that is wrong. But if you've been giving more than you're receiving, if you've been ignoring red flags because your heart was louder than your discernment, then God may be showing you something. It's time to grow up in your spirit. Growth doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it comes through heartbreak, through disappointment, through that moment when you look in the mirror and realize, I lost myself trying to love someone who didn't even see me. And that moment right there, that's when growth begins. God uses narcissistic relationships to wake us up, to stop the pattern, to heal the childhood wound that keeps drawing us back to emotionally unavailable people, to show us that love doesn't mean sacrificing your sanity, to remind us that peace isn't found in people-pleasing, it's found in God-pleasing. And I know some of you are thinking, why do I have to learn this way? Why couldn't it have been easier? Listen, I don't have all the answers, but I know this. God doesn't waste pain. If he allowed it, he will redeem it. And the thing that crushed you is also the thing that's teaching you. That relationship is showing you how to trust your instincts again, how to stop ignoring your gut, how to speak up, stand tall, and stop shrinking to make someone else comfortable. You don't need to earn love. You don't need to perform for affection. You don't need to explain your worth to someone who's too broken to see it. And maybe that's the lesson God is revealing through them. He's calling you back to you. The narcissist didn't make you who you are, but they revealed who you forgot you were. They showed you what happens when you abandon yourself to hold on to someone else. They uncovered the parts of you that still thought love had to be earned. And now God is saying that's not who you are anymore. You're growing, you're changing, you're becoming whole. And sometimes growth feels like grief because you're letting go of illusions, old beliefs, old patterns, and people who were never meant to carry your destiny. But that grief is good. That pain is producing something eternal. That heartbreak is actually your breakthrough. Don't be ashamed of your process. Don't be embarrassed that you loved someone who couldn't love you back. Don't regret what it taught you. Because one day you're going to look back and say, that relationship didn't break me, it built me. It pushed me closer to God. It brought me face to face with wounds I didn't even know I had. And because of it, I'll never lose myself again. So no, you're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not less spiritual. You're awakening. And the narcissist didn't win because the moment you started seeing the truth, the moment you stopped making excuses, the moment you chose growth over fantasy, that's the moment everything started to shift. Absolutely. Here's the expanded version of the third keynote. Boundaries are biblical, flowing naturally in the honest, strong, and spiritually wise tone you're looking for, inspired by JOYCE MEYER style. No headings, just pure heart and truth. One of the most misunderstood things in the life of a believer is the idea of boundaries. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that being a good Christian means being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly patient, no matter what someone else does to you. We were told to turn the other cheek, to bear the burdens of others, to love unconditionally, and yes, all of that is true. But we were never told that none of that means letting people walk all over you. God never called you to be a doormat. Boundaries are not rebellion. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are not unloving. Boundaries are biblical. And if you've ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, you know they hate boundaries because boundaries expose the truth. Boundaries interrupt manipulation. Boundaries say you can't control me anymore. You don't get to define my worth. You don't get to violate my peace and still expect my presence. See, narcissists feed on access. They thrive when they can take and take and take, and the moment you stop giving, the moment you say enough, they call you the problem. They might guilt you, twist scripture, say you're not being Christ-like. But let me remind you, even Jesus had boundaries. Jesus loved everyone, but he didn't trust everyone. He forgave freely, but he didn't invite every person into his inner circle. He walked away from the Pharisees. He didn't beg Judas to stay. He didn't chase after every toxic person trying to manipulate him. He knew his mission, he knew his value, and he wasn't afraid to draw a line when necessary. That's not pride, that's wisdom. God gives us discernment, not just so we can detect the devil, but so we can protect what's holy. And your peace is holy. Your mind is holy. Your time, your calling, your heart, your home, those things are not up for sale to anyone who just wants access. You don't owe constant proximity to people who constantly violate your peace. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Grace doesn't mean access. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. It is not unchristian to say, I will not let you talk to me like that. It is not unspiritual to say, I need space. It is not unforgiving to say, I'm walking away. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is create distance. Because boundaries don't just protect you, they give others a chance to see the consequences of their own behavior. As long as you keep absorbing the blow, they never learn. As long as you keep fixing everything, they never grow. And I know you've been trying to help. I know you've prayed, you've stayed, you've tried again and again. But God is not asking you to carry the weight of someone else's refusal to heal. That's not your job. And let's be honest, some of us weren't just enabling others. We were ignoring ourselves. We were putting their needs above our own, their comfort above our calling, their opinions above God's voice. When you live like that long enough, you lose the sound of your own soul. But God is bringing that back. He's restoring your voice. He's teaching you how to guard your heart, not because you're bitter, but because you're wise now. The boundary you draw today is the door God uses to bring peace tomorrow. The no you speak in obedience is the yes that opens the way to healing. You're not hard-hearted. You're not cold. You're not wrong for wanting distance from dysfunction. You're learning how to love without losing yourself. There is nothing wrong with your desire for peace. That is not selfish. That is sacred. You were not designed to live in emotional chaos. God doesn't call you to relationships that destroy you. And sometimes the most powerful act of faith is not staying in the fire, but knowing when to step out. So don't feel guilty for drawing that line. Don't let the narcissist twist your faith into a cage. Don't let their version of love convince you that you have to stay silent, small, and suffering to be seen as godly. That's not God's way. He gives peace. He gives wisdom. He gives boundaries. And he gives you permission to protect the life he gave you. You are not less spiritual because you walked away. You are not less loving because you said, that's enough. You are becoming the person God always intended you to be: strong, wise, loving, and unshakably at peace. And sometimes the holiest thing you can do is close the door. Not in hatred, not in revenge, but in wholeness. And when you do, watch what God does with the space that boundary creates. Absolutely. Here's the expanded version of the fourth keynote. Your deliverance is a testimony written in that strong, redemptive, and faith-driven voice full of realness and spiritual encouragement, just like you'd hear from the platform of someone who's lived it and preaches it straight. There comes a point after the tears, after the confusion, after the nights you lay awake wondering how you ended up in a place so heavy, so draining, so far from peace, that something begins to shift. It may not be loud, it may not be dramatic, but it's powerful. It's the moment you realize this didn't destroy you. This didn't take you out. This didn't stop the plan of God for your life. It may have delayed it. It may have distracted you. It may have knocked the wind out of you, but it didn't kill the promise inside you. And because of that, you're still standing. See, what the enemy meant for evil, God is about to use for good. That's not just a verse we quote when we're trying to stay hopeful. That's truth. And sometimes the darkest places you've walked through, the hardest seasons of your life, become the very foundation of the message you're about to carry. You don't come out of that kind of battle without a testimony. You don't walk through fire and not emerge with a story that carries power. God didn't let you go through a narcissistic relationship just so you could survive it. He's raising you up so you can speak from it, so you can help the next person who feels like they're going crazy, so you can show someone else what it looks like to come out of manipulation, confusion, control, and spiritual exhaustion with your head held high and your faith still intact. See, narcissists don't just attack your emotions, they attack your identity. They try to wear you down to the point where you forget who you are. You forget that you're valuable. You forget that you've a voice. You forget that you are loved by God deeply and fiercely, no matter who tried to make you feel otherwise. But here's the good part. When God brings you out, he doesn't just restore you to where you were. He restores you better, stronger, wiser, sharper. He rebuilds the parts of you that were torn down, and he does it with grace, not shame. He doesn't hold it against you that you stayed too long. He doesn't judge you for falling for the charm, the manipulation, the lies. He saw your heart. He knew your intentions. And now he's using your story to help someone else find their way out. That's why your deliverance matters, not just for your own freedom, but for someone else's healing. There's a mother out there wondering how she's going to raise her kids under the weight of emotional abuse. There's a young woman blaming herself for being gaslit every day by someone she thought loved her. There's a man out there silent in his suffering because he doesn't think anyone will believe him. And they need to hear you, not just the polished version, but the real one. The one that says, I was there. I thought I'd never get out. I lost myself too. But God brought me through. Your pain is going to become someone else's path to freedom. Your voice is going to break chains. Your healing is going to restore hope in people who are on the edge of giving up. Because there's something powerful about lived through truth. It doesn't just talk, it resonates. And when people hear it, they don't just see your story. They see God in your story. So don't minimize what you've been through. Don't downplay it. Don't hide it. It took courage to survive that kind of relationship. It took prayer. It took surrender. It took strength you didn't even know you had. And now that you're on the other side, or maybe still in the middle of the healing, your testimony is still working. Every step you take forward is a declaration. This didn't win. It didn't steal my destiny. It didn't silence my voice. And it sure didn't stop what God has planned for me. You may have been through hell with that narcissist, but you're not staying there. You're rising up, and when you do, your life will speak. You don't even have to say much. Just your peace will be a testimony. Your joy will be a testimony. Your boundaries will be a testimony. Your freedom will tell the world, God did this. He brought me out. He healed what I thought would never be whole again. And that right there is why you're going to keep moving forward. Because your deliverance is not just for you. It's the spark someone else is waiting for. And they'll see it through you.